Hi guys, I'm Lloyd. I want to tell you my story. It started about 2.5 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. I started telling my doctor that I just was feeling tired all the time and didn't think things were right. And he just says, hey, he says, you're 70 years old now. He says, you gotta slow down. And I guess I kind of accepted it at first. But it still could feel myself going downhill. And so for 1.5 years I kept hounding him about it. I mean, he was concerned about my health. He'd see me every 3 or 4 months. But whenever I talked about my chronic fatigue and not feeling like I had any ambition to do anything other than what I absolutely had to have, that's as far as I got with it. Got down towards the end of that, you know, I couldn't even go for a walk without having to call my wife to come get me because I was totally exhausted. Finally, in October of 2012, my last meeting with my regular doctor before I started doing something on my own about doing something about this, my doctor said to me at the end of our meeting that I have to just, that if I wanted to do something about testosterone therapy, that they could do that, but I just burned myself out. And I looked at him, I says, Doc, I says, I think I'd rather go out like a supernova than crawl to my grave.
There you go. Yeah.
And he kind of got a funny look on his face, and I left, because that was the end of our session. And I started looking for someone to go to, and I got lucky and found Dr. Hoffman on the internet and made an appointment with him. And went in and told him what I was telling my other doctor, and he basically told me everything that I told my other doctor I wanted to try, that what I thought was wrong, and he was telling me that he thought it was wrong. And it took a couple of months to get things going before I started taking testosterone, and during that time I actually went downhill even further to the point where I couldn't walk 3 blocks from where I parked my car to work without having to sit down on a bench and rest a little bit halfway there. I got to the point where I didn't even want to step off the curb. I'd walk down the wheelchair ramps. And when I got to the other side of the street, I'd walk up the wheelchair ramp. I didn't want to step up and down the curb. I mean, seems like a little thing, but when it all turned around after I got on testosterone therapy, it was kind of surprising that, you know, it was like turning the clock back 10 or 15 years.
Right.
And I'm just glad I pursued it. And now when I see somebody else struggling like I was struggling, I want to go take them by the arms and shake them and tell them to go do something. Of course, they're total strangers and you don't do that. So that's kind of my story. I really believe a person, when they get older, need to take their health under their own control and start paying attention to what's going on. I went so far as to take my lab reports for the last 2.5 years, this was a couple of years ago, and put them on an electronic spreadsheet and started tracking what these things meant. Good for you. And where they were going, and took a class on what these readings meant and what was happening to me. And I went from borderline diabetic for a couple of years to full-blown diabetic in January before I started testosterone therapy. Now I'm not even borderline diabetic anymore, except they say once you're diabetic the rest of your life, but if you take care of your health, it's all under control. And so all my lab results now are normal, and it's just the best thing I ever did. And I encourage you to do something if you're not satisfied with your life, because we're down in the short years now. You got to enjoy them.
There you go.
Not crawl to your grave.